Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes here, and today's video is in response to the 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror podcast and their Hidden Gems episode that they would have done roughly 3-4 weeks ago. The 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror podcast is my personal favourite horror podcast to listen to. Not only are they also knowledgeable on horror movies, but they have great banter and discussions, and I've been listening to these guys for years, so if you're watching this video now and have never heard of them, or are looking for a horror movie podcast to get into, I highly recommend these guys. I'll link Moodz' channel in the description below because he posts full episodes of the podcast on his YouTube channel if you want to listen to it that way, but they're also on Spotify and other platforms as well. But as I said, I'll link Moodz' YouTube channel in the description below if you want to go and check out a handful of episodes, or see if you like it or not. But either way, as I said, they did a Hidden Gems episode roughly 3-4 weeks ago, where all three hosts of the show, being Moodz, JP, and Tyler, recommended 5 horror movie hidden gems each that they wanted to share with listeners and each other. They also put forward, not really a challenge, but sort of an invitation for listeners to try and see how many of the 15 total hidden gems that they could watch within a span of a month or so. They did offer a prize, even though I wasn't eligible because I don't live in the States, I live in Australia. But that wasn't the point. I just wanted to try and see how many of these hidden gems I could check out within the span of the month anyway. I thought I could just rise to the challenge and see how I went. So they did a pretty good job with their hidden gems, because out of 15 hidden gem movies total, I had seen 0 of them. I think it would have roughly been maybe 7 or 8 that I have heard of before and knew a little bit about, but that also means 7 or 8 that I knew 0 about. I was going into completely blind other than what they spoke about in that episode. So how many of the 15 did I get through within a span of a month? I got through 13, which I'm still pretty happy with, because I was still trying to keep up other content on my channel for, my viewers and watchers. And also just in my personal life, I had a pretty busy month as well. So I was pretty happy with 13. And the reason why I got through 13 and not the full 15 wasn't a matter of running out of time or getting burnt out. It actually was just because I couldn't find versions to watch online of 2 of these movies. Majority of these films I had to watch online. I couldn't find them on streaming or anywhere else. The 2 movies that I missed out on was one of Tyler's, being The Cremator, and one of Moodz's, being Dr. Death, Seeker of Souls. There were a couple of times where I found them online technically, but the versions were just so poor in quality that there was just no point of me watching them. I couldn't find them on streaming at all. It even got to the point where I was happy to pick up physical copies if I needed to, but it was either they weren't going to make it here on time, or I just couldn't find physical copies. So, like I said, I'm not down on the fact that I didn't get to see all 15 within a span of a month. I'm still very happy with 13, but I didn't get through all 15, so I just thought I'd let you guys know. But I'm going to get into talking about these movies now and my thoughts on them. They're not going to be the reviews that I normally do on my channel, where I give them a score and everything. They're just going to be short and sharp, just quick overviews. I might go into spoilers a little bit more than I normally do, but also bear with me a little bit as well, because there was so many movies in such a short amount of time. And then I've been watching, stuff for my channel as well, and going to the movies as well, so my memory on each of them isn't the greatest either. I was trying to figure out, what order do I go through the movies in these hidden gems in this video. I was thinking, do I do it in the order that they brought them up in that episode? Then I went over and was like, okay, maybe I just do it in the order that I watched them in. But I've decided I'm going to do it in the order of my one I found the most enjoyable to least favourite. The reason why I went to that is because, as I said, I'm not going to be giving them ratings or, scores or anything. So it's probably just an easier way to sort of keep track of which ones were my favourite to least favourite. And also, you'll sort of notice my enthusiasm sort of drop more so towards the end. So sorry in advance to Tyler, because he's sort of the most pretentious with his movies and not really my taste. So I'm sorry in advance, Tyler, that your movies are more so towards the back. I find that I have most similar taste to JP. That's always sort of been the case. I'm a little bit 50-50 with Moodz. Probably more so like 65% with Moodz. Like, we do like a fair bit of stuff similar. But Tyler is a bit more specific with his taste. But, all each to their own. But either way, let's get into this now, so I'm just going to ramble on forever, so yeah, let's get into it. So like I said, doing this video from my favourite watch to least favourite watch, so technically coming in at my number one was a suggestion from JP, a film called Capture, Kill, Release from the year 2016. This one also happened to be the first movie that I watched for this challenge, only because it was one of two movies that I could actually find on streaming. I found it on Tubi, so I was like, okay, while I have a means of watching this one right in front of me, I'll start with this one. Though I was a little bit nervous about it because I feel like over the past year or two, found footage horror movies have been a lot more hit and miss with me. Where back in the day I used to fucking love them, but now it's a little bit more iffy, and I feel like it really depends on what type of found footage horror movie I'm getting. And what I mean by that is all found footage horror movies are meant to be like it's recovered found footage that, is somewhat based in reality, and it's like it's a discovered lost tape or something like that. But I feel like it goes down two types of roads. One road where it's a little bit more fantastical and you can suspend your disbelief and have a little bit more fun with it, and it's a bit more out there. Think the VHS franchise, or that Bigfoot horror movie exists or something like that, where it's a bit more fantastical and a bit more out there. But then there's ones that are meant to be very grounded. Think Creep, Megan is Missing, The Blair Witch Project, or this. So when it comes to serial killer found footage horror movies where it's meant to be based in reality, like the acting needs to be perfect, nothing needs to be so unbelievable that will take you out of it. That's why they're a little bit more hit and miss with me. But as you can tell, I really enjoyed this one. This one's about a husband and wife. The wife is like really on board with this idea of murdering someone, and they're going to film it. And the husband is a little bit more iffy on it, and the whole movie is about them trying to film their first murder and get it on tape, and their relationship going through this. I like that this movie got going right away, and I don't mean like it got straight into kills or gore or anything like that, but it went straight into the planning. Like, she's so on board with it, it's like fucking scary how on board with it she is, and he's kind of pretending he is, but through every time he speaks, you can tell that there's hesitation in his voice. Even if he's saying that he's on board with it, you can hear it. He's not fully in board with the idea. And that was the movie's strongest element to me, the dynamic between Jen and Farhang, the husband and wife, because she is manipulative and he is just stuck in this scenario. Like I said, right from the start, every scene that he's in, even if he's saying that he's on board, he's not fully on board. There's some type of hesitation. And I can see people saying like, okay, then why doesn't he just leave or break up with her or just fully shut down the idea? But I feel like that is something that is somewhat believable, whether it's someone you're in a relationship with or a friend or something. Sometimes they get this idea and you're just so either in love or you just want to please them that you kind of have blinders on. And I've never had an example where someone wants to kill somebody or anything, but you just have blinders on and you're just trying to please them, and in your mind you're like, okay, maybe it's just a fantasy, eventually it'll wear off and everything will go back to normal. And I feel like that's sort of the situation that Farhang is in. He's just hoping that he can play along and eventually, I don't know, it will just wear off or something like that. That's what I feel like it is. But one of my favourite scenes in this is just him realising like how deep into it he really is. It's the scene where they're messing around with handcuffs and she cuffs Farhang and leaves him down in the basement or something just as sort of a prank. And the camera's locked on his face and you can just see him register, fuck, we have gone too far. This is not where I want it to go. And then it eventually gets to a part where she brings this homeless guy back for dinner, and Farhang is like completely out of it, and the homeless guy's name's Gary, and Gary says to him, oh, like, aren't you like excited about working on this film with your wife? Like, very cool. And Farhang just straight up goes, the film's not really mine, it was more of her idea. And this is just him completely checking out. Like, by that point, he's completely not on board. He just doesn't know how to get out of it. But not only that, I thought this movie was brutal too. There was this insane scene with a cat that just made me very anxious. A lot of this movie made me anxious. I just thought it was super solid. When the gore came out, I thought the gore was really cool. And as I said, the performances, that's something that really needs to be solid. On the podcast lately, they've been speaking about Megan is Missing a lot, and that's a movie where I agree with Moodz. I feel like the performances aren't that great in that movie, and that's what sort of takes me out of it. In this one, I thought everyone did such a great job, and I felt so immersed in this being, as I said, legit found footage. I was really entertained, really enjoyed this one, so as I said, my favourite watch would have had to be in Capture Kill Release. So getting into my second favourite movie that I checked out, another one of JP's recommendations, a film called Twisted Nerve from 1968. Like I said before, none of these movies I had seen beforehand, but out of all of them, Twisted Nerve is probably the one that I heard the most about going into. And just off the concept alone, our lead actor in this movie is playing someone with a mental disability, which is just fucking wild and very of the times. There's even a character that's like Indian or Sri Lankan or something like that. And that many times in this movie, he's referred to as the black man or the black doctor or something worse. And it's done so nonchalantly. It's just fucking wild. But as I said, it's very of the times. It's very 1968. But I did want to bring that up. But just the story and the mystery behind this one. Because we're following our lead character. And the mystery is we're not sure if he's faking a mental disability or there is genuinely something wrong in his head. And my god, if it's not the most fucking entertaining thing I had seen in a long time, I was so engaged in this movie. So it gets to a point where he moves into this like communal living environment, this big share house where we've got these characters floating around. He's trying to get close to this young girl that runs the establishment with her mum, and like it got to a point where I almost didn't want him getting caught because I just wanted to see how far he could take it, what questionable thing was going to happen next. It was so fucking entertaining. The mystery was just so engaging as well. This was like one of the earlier movies again that I watched, and it was kind of a longer one, I guess, but the whole way through I was completely engaged. I never felt switched out of it. So yeah, to keep this one short and sharp again, another really cool watch with Twisted Nerve. Alright, so I swear this whole video isn't just me sucking JP's dick the whole time, because my third favourite movie that I checked out was a recommendation by Moodz, a film titled Devil Doll from 1964. This was the second of two movies that I actually was able to find on streaming. Again, I found it on Tubi. I love a 60s flick like this, where it's simple, it's light, it's fun. It's not too long either. It had a runtime of 80 minutes. Very much of films in this time, it pushes it right to the end of the 80 minutes. But to me, the movie just flew by. Like I said, the story was fun. The dummy coming to life was a little bit goofy looking, but also at the same time, it was genuinely kind of creepy too and a little bit unsettling. So I guess it walked a pretty tight line of being both those things. I found it weird that nobody in this movie seemed too freaked out of watching this dummy come to life and walk around and talk, especially people of the 60s. Like, I understand they're not caveman or anything like that, but I feel like people in the 60s would be shitting bricks watching a dummy come to life and walk across the stage. I can almost picture, like, on the verge of dying watching that shit. I found that kind of weird. But more creepy than the dummy to me was Varelli. I think he goes by, like, the Great Varelli. He was the magician who was kind of in charge of the Devil Doll, and you know, the guy kind of pulling the strings, no pun intended, behind the scenes. I found him pretty creepy, especially when his intentions came a little bit more rapey halfway about the movie. That I thought that was pretty weird. And the girls he was trying to pull as well. Our lead actress in this movie was beautiful. Even his OG assistant, she was really stunning too. I found them both to be really beautiful women. But all that aside, again, a really easy, simple movie to get through. It was a breeze. I liked this one so much that I had to try and find a physical copy, and I did, by Umbrella. I found it weird. This one's called the Continental version. It has a couple more minutes to the runtime than the version that I found on Tubi. And once I saw this on this release, I was like trying to think back, and there were a few moments on the Tubi version that I watched where it seems like things were cut out, so I'm guessing there was just, I don't know, a couple of extra minutes of things added to this version. It's called the Continental version with additional adult scenes, so I really don't know. But as I said, I really enjoyed this movie, so I won't hesitate to chuck this movie on again sometime soon. So my third favourite movie that I watched was Devil Doll from 1964. So coming in at my number 4, I'm back on the JP train because another one of his suggestions, a film called The Dead from 2010. I'm not going to lie, over the past few months I've been on a bit of a zombie movie null, where I'm sure everybody every now and then has a specific horror subgenre where they just sort of don't really feel like it, they're on a bit of a lull with it, and for me that is zombie movies. So going into this one, I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I can be bothered, but I'll check it out. Like, I wasn't too hyped for it. But this movie I thought was very fucking cool. From the opening scene, you very quickly gather the vibe of what this one's going to be like. I love that it didn't do anything too crazy by going too far into action territory or going too far into the lore and history of why there are zombies about in this world. Like I said, it keeps it simple. Right from the start of the movie, you gather all the information that you really need to know, and then you just enjoy the ride from there. I love the fact that it went back to classic walking zombies. Too many films nowadays, we've got the fucking running, sprinting zombies, and to me, my favourite type of zombies are the walking ones, and this is pretty much what I picture as like an iconic zombie. The gore and the effects were also really great. While on the topic of the zombies, I really enjoyed the use of physically disabled actors portraying more decrepit zombies. I just think that's really cool. The movie gave me flashes of like Romero zombie films. Maybe that is a bit too much of a pat on the back, but I thought it gave me like Romero vibes. Just the feeling of more so old school zombies, again, rising from the dead, not infection, not sprinting. It was just very much of what I could have wanted from a zombie movie, to be completely honest. Again, like Devil Doll, this is a movie that I picked up a physical copy of. It's just in the mail, it's not here yet. I liked it that much. I think it's brought me out of my zombie null that I've been in over the past couple of months. So, a very cool one. Really dug this flick. My fourth favourite movie. So getting into my fifth favourite film that I checked out, and finally a Tyler recommendation. Again, I'm sorry Tyler, but a lot more of your movies are going to be towards the back of this list. But his suggestion here was Kwaidan, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, from 1964, a Japanese anthology film. To not beat around the bush, probably more so a film that I respect and appreciate more than I can say I really enjoyed. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it at all. It sounds weird, but most of the epiphany of me liking this movie probably came after it was actually over and thinking back on it, and I was like, you know what, that story was actually pretty cool, that reveal was pretty cool, that visual was pretty cool, and that's where most of my enjoyment probably came from. The atmosphere, the sets, the locations throughout were pretty awesome. The stories weakened for me as it went on, maybe due to the fact that the movie was 3 hours long and maybe I was just getting worn out. But the first two stories I mostly enjoyed, but especially they really landed with their reveals and their endings to those two first stories. The third story had moments, maybe an obvious point, but I really enjoyed the visual of our lead being painted with that script. I thought it was really cool. And the fourth story was easily my least favourite. Just in general. So again, I didn't love this one, but once it was over and I was looking back on it, I was like, you know what, that movie was kind of cool and it had its cool moments. But again, probably more so one that I can appreciate and respect more than anything else. So coming in at my number 5 was, hopefully I'm not butchering the name, Kwaidan from 1964, suggested by Tyler. Coming in as my 6th favourite film was another suggestion by Moodz, titled Burn Witch Burn from 1962. Where to start with this one? The intro to this movie was fucking dope. Pretty much this voiceover comes on saying that there's a curse on the film and he's going to do this spell to rid the screen of projecting witchcraft, which I just thought was fucking awesome. The voiceover gets like real into it, and I just thought it was a lot of fun, and it really set a expectation of the vibe of what was going to be going forward in my mind. And I'm just really happy that it opened with that, because I kind of expected this movie to be a little bit more blunt or just not as fun as what it turned out to be. And with me saying it was fun, I thought this movie was cool. No way I'd put it on a tier of saying that I loved this movie, but I did really like it. I enjoyed the backstory of how his wife became a witch, and how it led to him like not believing and him being skeptical to the point of him being in danger. To me, it gave me Night of the Demon vibes, another film from the 60s, which I love. Night of the Demon, otherwise known as Curse of the Demon for those who don't know. I fucking love that movie, and it kind of gave me those feels. Not as good as that movie, but kind of those vibes. This movie is also known as Night of the Eagle, which is a lesson I learned the hard way, because I was looking for Burn Witch Burn for fucking ages, and the version I ended up finding was called Night of the Eagle, and I'm like, I think it's the same thing. I should have checked Letterboxd straight away. But either way, this movie was fun. Maybe I'll check it out again sometime down the track. It's not on the level of me saying I love it again, but I thought it was pretty solid. So my number 6 goes to Moodz' pick, Burn Witch Burn. Alright, so for my 7th pick, I'm going back to back with Mood's suggestions here. One that he suggested titled The Flesh Eaters from 1964. Just off that title alone, I thought it was going to be a zombie movie, but when he started speaking about it in the Hidden Gems episode, I realised it was a little bit more. But I thought this one was going to be a little bit more up my alley than what it ended up being. The opening I thought was pretty cool, and I was like, okay, it's giving me like Creepshow 2 The Raft vibes, creature feature, could be a fun time. And it still was, but I felt like the human drama on the island, our characters end up stuck on this island, was just kind of boring me a little bit, if I'm being honest. Whenever the physical flesh eaters were actually there and involved, I thought it was pretty cool, but everything else was just kind of meh. It did fly by though. I did think it was fun enough. I don't think this was a movie that was a waste of time or anything. I just found it to be okay. So I'm going to keep this one short and sharp. Another one of Mood's suggestions being The Flesh Eaters from 1964. Coming in at my number 8 spot, another suggestion by Tyler, this time Seconds from 1966. This one I found to be fairly interesting, and I was guessing it was going to be just off the premise and what he was speaking about in the Hidden Gems episode. Even though I'd say this was more of a thriller rather than a horror, it still had some pretty cool psychological shit in there. Just the idea of being in a whole new body, and even the organisation running the show I found to be pretty freaky. I found the creepiest scene to probably be his post-surgery, where he's all wrapped up in the bandages and gauze and everything, and you're just waiting for the reveal. I found that scene to be actually pretty creepy. And this movie was a trip. It was like lots of quirky, interesting things going on. And I don't want to sound like a broken record with all of Tyler's suggestions, but again, it was probably more of a case of it just not really completely being my thing. It had its moments, kind of like Kwaidan. The highs were really high and really interesting, but overall, just nothing really drew me in and stuck with me. And you'll notice that a lot when I'm talking about Tyler's recommendations. You know, everyone has their personal tastes and suggestions. This isn't me attacking Tyler. He likes what he likes. JP likes what he likes. Moodz likes what he likes. I like what I like, and it just happens to not always be the same thing as Tyler. But to say this movie was bad or anything is completely wrong. I thought it had interesting moments, just overall wasn't my thing. So my number 8 goes to Seconds, suggested by Tyler from 1966. So for my number 9 pick, back to the suggestions from JP, this time Storm of the Century from 1999. So straight off the bat, I can't really remember a Stephen King TV miniseries that I really loved, at least just off the top of my head I can't. Especially some of the older ones, like the It TV miniseries is fine. Honestly, I think Tim Curry just kind of carries that miniseries for me. Salem's Lot sort of fades in and out. There's some really cool moments and then some stuff I don't really care about. The Shining, oddly enough, probably the least popular out of the ones I've brought up so far, but probably is my favourite, at least of the ones that I just listed there. So going into this one, I was aware that it could really possibly not be my thing, and to be fair, it kind of wasn't. I watched it all in one sitting and thought there were some interesting moments, but they were all sort of a little bit too few and far between. I actually thought the idea and the story was pretty cool. The coastal island setting, the small town in this storm, I really enjoyed. But like I said, too many stretches went by where I was kind of honestly bored, and then eventually something really cool would happen, and then it would be another long period of a null where I just was losing interest again. The villain was cool. Moments in this reminded me of The Mist, again a Stephen King adaptation, a little bit of Midnight Mass as well, which is weird because Midnight Mass is pretty much Mike Flanagan's version of Salem's Lot, and I wasn't a big fan of Salem's Lot, but I loved Midnight Mass. So yeah, I thought this one, again, wasn't bad, just wasn't really my thing. I had trouble sitting through the runtime of this one. Maybe I should have broken it up into 3 different sittings, but gave it a crack. Wasn't really my thing, but again, my 9th pick, Storm of the Century, recommended by JP. For my number 10, I have back-to-back recommendations by JP. This time, Confessions of a Serial Killer from 1985. And this one does have a little bit of an asterisk next to it because, to be straight up, this wasn't the greatest viewing experience at all, which did affect my enjoyment of it, if I'm being completely honest. So, firstly, the version that I found to watch online of this movie wasn't the greatest quality at all. Obviously, it was better quality than the two movies that I didn't end up getting around to watching, but it still just wasn't the greatest quality. Secondly, it just was a very busy house at the time of me watching this. There was people coming in and out of my movie room. I needed to keep stopping and starting to go lend a hand with particular things. And I just never got back around to rewatching this one because I was running on such a tight schedule, trying to watch all these hidden gems within a month. So I don't actually remember this one too well, which is unfortunate because the parts that I do remember were actually fairly interesting. So a lot of outside factors aside, I thought it was an engaging enough story. I feel like we see a lot more movies like this nowadays. A serial killer, we follow them through life and their murders, even if it's not done in the same style as this one, where it was flashbacks, accounts, interview, like what this movie was. So this one's a hard one to kind of judge. As I said, there's an asterisk next to it. Because, as I said, I don't actually think it was that bad. It just really sucked that I wasn't able to fully lock into it because of the quality and the interruptions on that day and, a lot of outside factors. So my number 10, a suggestion by JP, Confessions of a Serial Killer from 1985. Coming in for my number 11 is The Last Suggestion by Moodz, this time a movie called Born of Fire from 1987. This movie started out alright, and I felt like I was going to sneakily enjoy this one, and I say sneakily because even when he was speaking about it in the podcast episode, the Hidden Gems episode, the way he was talking about it and everything, it just sounded like it wasn't really going to be my thing. I wasn't too hyped for this one, but I gave it a go. And as I said, it started out somewhat interesting. It had different shit about music and the sun, and I was like, okay, it's a bit odd, but, I'll give it a go. And then I got into the desert and whatever, and I thought it had a cool aesthetic. And I was like slightly getting into it, but then as it kept going through the rest of the movie, I felt myself drifting out of it, if I'm being honest. Like, I took notes for all of these movies. I watched this one pretty early on, and even looking back at the notes, I'm having trouble remembering what was actually going on in this movie. I know there were definitely moments that peaked, and I was like, okay, this is like kind of cool again and everything, but overall, I don't think it really locked in my interest. Again, it's just personal taste. I'm happy that he liked this movie, but it just wasn't really my thing. I found myself getting bored, I guess, as the movie just kept getting on. So, and to be honest, as I said, I don't remember it too well either. So, my number 11, the last suggestion from Moodz on this list, Born of Fire from 1987. So in this last stretch, I'm just going to try and kill two birds with one stone here. The last two of Tyler's suggestions that I were able to watch being Hour of the Wolf from 1968 and Woman of the Dunes from 1964. Again, a situation that I've brought up a lot with Tyler's suggestions here. I'm happy that he really likes these movies. They just weren't so my thing. So Hour of the Wolf, Woman of the Dunes, respectively, my 12 and 13. I'm going to start off with Woman of the Dunes because, to be completely honest, this probably was my worst watching experience, as in I was really bored with this movie, I'm not going to lie. I found myself checking in and out, and when I say checking in and out, I know 100% I was falling in and out of sleep. It probably deserved my full attention and rewatch and everything for me to be speaking about it, but as I said, I was on a time schedule trying to get in all these movies and then also keep up content, so I never got back around to watching it, so that one is pretty much null and void, but I just wanted to quickly mention it. It had some okay moments from what I remember, but most of the time I was pretty bored. So sorry about that, Tyler. Woman of the Dunes, I'm sure it is a better movie than what I'm giving it credit for here, but yeah, I wasn't able to check into it. Hour of the Wolf, I do remember a lot better. Again, so I know I sound like a broken record with Tyler's movies, but they're movies that I understand why Tyler would like them, and I can respect that they're well-made movies and everything. It just wasn't really my thing. I enjoyed the seaside setting in this one, which I always think is cool. I always love like a seaside setting in horror movies. Something about it, like the small village sort of thing, I think is cool. Moments of oddness, which led to feelings of like unsettlingness and everything, if that's a word, came in and out with Hour of the Wolf. But overall, I just found myself pretty bored with this one, checking in and out. And when I say checking in and out this time, I was able to stay awake. I wasn't checking my phone or fiddling with things. I was trying to focus so hard on this movie, but it would just go for a stretch where I'm like, okay, what happened? And I was like, I was just losing focus, and overall it just wasn't a pleasant viewing experience for me. And as I said, I don't want to sound like, I'm bashing Tyler for liking these movies. Like, I'm really happy that he likes these movies, and I understand why he respects these movies and why they're well-made movies and everything. I can fully get on board with that, but just for me and my personal taste, it wasn't really my thing. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that really like Hour of the Wolf and Woman of the Dunes. I'm sure both of those movies have got a lot of love. I know that they've got a lot of love. They just weren't for me. So I just wanted to smash those two out at the end because I'm actually getting pretty tired from recording this video. But thank you for joining me for this recap of the Hidden Gems Challenge by the 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror. Hopefully JP, Moodz and Tyler have got around to hear what I've thought of their movies. Again, I'm so fucking sorry, Tyler, but your movies, man, they're just too pretentious for me. I can say that because they all give him shit for being pretentious. But yeah, there was some movies that I really loved. I'd definitely say my favourites were The Dead, Devil Doll, Capture, Kill, Release, and what was the second one? Twisted Nerve. Those four were definitely like the really, really strong ones that stuck out to me through this month and checking out these hidden gems. But thank you guys. I didn't expect so many movies from the 60s. I dropped a comment on one of the podcast episodes saying I expected a little bit more variety, and I should have been a little bit more clear because Moodz was like, oh, I think there's actually a fair bit of variety, and he's right. There's a lot of different types of films. I should have been more clear and said like more variety on decades and years and everything, but I think I think out of all of them, JP definitely had the most variety when it came to years. He had the 2010s, the 90s and everything, a nice stretch of decades. But I didn't expect so many from the 60s, and I'm not going to lie, the 60s isn't like my favorite era. The furthest that I go back frequently is probably like the 70s and all that, like on a frequent occasion. So it was a dip into territory that I'm not always going back to and I'm not overly familiar with, but there was still some really cool watches and some stuff that I didn't mind. So yeah, I'm going to leave this video here, guys, because as I said, I'm getting tired, losing my breath. I've been talking for a while, but hopefully you guys enjoyed my feedback and my short little reviews here. And for those who come to my channel to watch my content frequently, I'll see you for another video soon. Peace, guys.